Better get the coleslaw, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue. Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Godbreaker. The man who rules the world takes on the Asgardian god of thunder in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes, Godbreaker at online booksellers today. I got a chance to take a look at the trailer for Warner Bros. Discovery's Flash movie on Super Bowl Sunday, and I didn't see anything in that trailer that would motivate me to run to the theater to spend $15 to watch different actors playing the same story that I already saw for free on the CW for next to 9 seasons. Now, David Zaslav, James Gunn, and Peter Safran believe that The Flash is such a great movie that they didn't want to scrap this movie, as Warner Brothers was out here struggling as related to its DC cinematic universe and its overall financial situation. And they're gambling that they can go out here and make big box office with The Flash in spite of Ezra Miller's tarnishing the image of the DC cinematic universe with his off-screen antics. And James Gunn, Peter Safran, and David Zaslav believe that The Flash is going to be as big a movie as The Dark Knight was back in 2008. And I'm going to have to disagree with all 3 of those executives, because what I saw in that trailer really did not impress me as related to this film. I didn't see this film being sort of like what they're calling it to be, so great that it's going to be like The Dark Knight. No, I just saw another average mid superhero film that basically is trying to capitalize on what made Marvel Studios movies popular. Because when I look at the trailer for The Flash, I just see a rehash again of the Flashpoint storyline, which has already been told 2 times already. It was already told in animation, and it was also told in the Flash TV series, I believe, in the first couple of seasons. And I've had enough of the Jeff Johns ego stroking as related to the Flashpoint storyline, because the Flashpoint storyline doesn't really make Barry Allen into a hero, and it really doesn't really redefine him as a hero like many people believe that he is. No, when I look at this so-called dark adaptation of The Flash and this whole story of Barry Allen looking to go back in time to prevent the death of his mother, this is something that really shows the lack of ethics that we saw with the Avengers in Avengers Endgame. And that's what really soured me on Marvel Studios movies, was the Infinity War, and then the aftermath of the Infinity War and how it was just so poorly written, because the heroes stopped being heroes and the heroes went out here and stooped down to the level of Thanos when they decided to enter into the quantum realm. And when they decided to enter into the quantum realm to go retrieve Infinity Stones in the past, what that did was turn the heroes into villains, because they were willing to compromise their ethics and not stand for something on a higher standard. And Barry Allen standing there talking about how he wants to go back to the past to go and save his mother's life, that really shows a lack of complete ethics as I see it, because a hero is supposed to stand for what's right and not to go out here and be vain and narcissistic like the villain. A villain would go back in time because Dr. Doom's original plan back in old issues of Fantastic Four was to go back in time to go save his mother, and that's why he created the time machine. So you've got heroes acting just like villains, and we're supposed to believe this is great. And you have Barry Allen talking about going back in time, and this creating what they call the Flashpoint paradox, which leads to the complete collapse of the DC universe. And what Flashpoint did in the comics is what's going to be done to the DC cinematic universe, because what happens when you have heroes going out here and compromising their moral position to satisfy their personal or emotional needs is you have heroes acting like villains, and that's where Flashpoint basically derailed the DC comic book universe and turned it into the jumbled mess that it currently is right now. And what you have now are David Zaslav, James Gunn, and Peter Safran believing that this movie, The Flash, will be a reset for the DC cinematic universe. But what this does is it further derails the DC cinematic universe in the same way Flashpoint derailed the DC comic book universe. And just like Dan Didio was as related to DC's publishing division, we have David Zaslav, James Gunn, and Peter Safran extremely desperate, like looking to try to revive DC's slumping sales as related to their movies, the same way DC was trying to reverse their slumping comic book sales with this gimmick-based storyline, which is basically, again, Avengers Endgame cut and pasted with Spider-Man No Way Home, and we have Michael Keaton thrown in to be the nostalgia character, similar to Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man No Way Home, and all of this is cut and pasted together to make a so-called Flash movie, but there's nothing here about the Flash and his rogues, the core elements of his story, because a Flash movie, as I see it, should have been about Barry Allen in Central City, Barry Allen taking on rogues like Captain Cold, Mirror Master, Rainbow Raider. We wanted to see a fun Flash movie. No, what they give us is more of the Dan Didio dark era of Flashpoint, and instead what they do is switch out Thomas Wayne for Michael Keaton, and they switch out the skinny, scrawny Superman who was imprisoned for a Spanish Supergirl. So basically what they're doing is trying to adapt Flashpoint in the hopes of trying to capitalize on what made Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man No Way Home so-called great movies, but I didn't really see anything great about those two movies. Yes, they were entertaining to some people, but they really took the superhero movie genre in a bad direction, because the superhero was not an ethical character at that point. No, the superhero character compromised their ethics, and that is one of the worst things about The Flash, is that we see sunny, straight-laced Barry Allen. His values are completely compromised. We see him participating in the same behavior that Grant Gustin's Flash participated in, and we already saw Grant Gustin learn this lesson for free on the CW. So what would motivate somebody to go see this movie outside of their nostalgia for Michael Keaton and the overall somewhat better special effects? Because when I look at this Flash trailer, it doesn't really answer a critical question, which is why should we care? And I didn't see any reason to care about this Flash movie, like I don't see a reason to care about any of the other DC superhero movies, because if James Gunn and Peter Safran are going to reboot the DC universe, then why should I go out here and pay $15 to watch what I already saw for free 9 years ago? Why should I spend money if none of this is going to matter? Why should I spend money on The Flash, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, Blue Beetle, Aquaman, and The Lost Kingdom? Why should I continue to spend money on this movie if none of these movies are going to count as canon, or you're going to go out here and try to spin it and say, oh, these are Elseworlds? Well, if I want to seek a canon DC cinematic movie, and if it's not canon, then the viewer has no reason to care. So when I look at this Flash movie, I see a reason to stay home because of the story alone being rehash of rehash of rehash, and I also see a reason to stay home because of Ezra Miller. Now, Ezra Miller being the lead in this film is a major reason why I'm staying home, because Ezra Miller is out here. He's been participating in some just crazy and out of control behavior, and since the studio refuses to hold him accountable for his out of control behavior, I cannot morally and ethically support this film, because what the studio is looking to do is enable Ezra Miller in an effort to try to make box office, and that really shows how their ethics have been compromised, and that really again runs diametrically opposed to what superhero movies are about. The continuing support for Ezra Miller and Amber Heard is a major turnoff for me, and it's another reason why I don't want to see this, absolutely as I see it, mediocre movie that basically is, again, rehash of rehash, because I'm already tired of this Flashpoint storyline. No, if I want to see a Flash movie, I want to see Barry Allen taking on his rogues and not focusing on this time travel, not focused on this whole multiverse concept. In fact, as a comic fan, I'm tired of the multiverse, because the multiverse is a weak plot device that bad writers go out here and use to try to retcon the bad storylines that they wrote. I just sat through a Captain Britain omnibus where they use this to retcon a series of absolutely bad stories. And again, this is what writers use to get out of a hole that they painted themselves in, when in actuality, if they just went and took a vacation, got away from the keyboard, and took a breather, maybe they would come back fresh with a brand new story and not be forced to rush something out. That's something I learned from my over 30 years as a writer. Sometimes you just gotta get away from the keyboard for a minute. You gotta rest a couple of characters before you write something stupid. And sadly, people in the comic book industry, they have been writing something stupid for a good, I say, about 20 years over at DC. And now the dysfunctional stories are now creeping into the DC cinematic universe, and that's what happens when you don't have good editorial that has a vision for the big picture. Because all of Dan Didio's terrible stories that he allowed to be published at DC are now the source material, and that source material is just impossible to work with, and it's a major problem over at as related to Warner Brothers. They don't really understand that if you don't have good source material, you don't have good material to adapt into films, and that's where the Flash movie currently is. The Flash movie is the end result of over 16 years of Dan Didio running DC straight into the ground, and Warner Brothers looking to try to make the DC comics like the movies, and ironically making just absolute junk, because instead of us getting quality adaptations of truly great stories like we did get in the 90s, like The Return of Barry Allen, which was an absolutely fantastic story that defined Wally West, or us getting stories like some of the Superman stories that came out, like the Real Man of Steel by John Byrne. I mean, we're not getting those middle of the road relatable characters. No, what we're getting are unethical characters, because again, when you hear Barry Allen, one of the most straight-laced, most ethical individuals in early DC Comics, talking about going back in time to stop his mother from dying, that really shows that we've gone from heroes to beings that think that they're gods, and that's a bad turn for superheroes, because when I saw this done in Avengers Endgame, I wasn't happy about it, because it showed that we have a real serious problem as related to ethics, and the line between good and evil has become so blurred that we're not really seeing that there's a clear hero that we can root for, like Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, or the early Spider-Man movies like Sam Raimi. We're not seeing that clear hero. No, we're getting this line where we're not seeing who's the good guy and who's the bad guy, and that's a really bad thing for superhero movies, because if you want kids to root for these characters, then we need to see heroes who are going to be good, heroes who are going to be just, heroes who are going to stand for what's right, and not an attempt by a movie studio to go out here and try to gloss over those core values. Because when I look at this Flash movie, I don't see a movie that, again, I want to run to the theater to go and see, because I'm not seeing a superhero in a movie. No, I'm seeing Barry Allen as a supervillain, and I'm seeing a movie that I definitely want to pass on, because you've got a superhero acting like a supervillain, you've got Ezra Miller acting like a monster off screen, and you've got Warner Brothers looking to enable dysfunction as being heroic. And again, all of this are reasons that I would never want to go see this Flash movie, because it runs around what a superhero is, and this movie further shows how the entire genre of superhero movies are in decline, and this is just another step towards the rock bottom that I believe Hollywood movie studios need to hit. Because this, again, the studio heads are thinking, oh, this is a great movie, and it shows me how compromised their morals and ethics are, that they would think, oh, a movie about a hero looking to go out here and compromise ethics, this is a great movie. No, this is not a great movie. It just shows how far we have fallen as a society, and it shows how unethical these studio executives are. They're looking to try to make a few dollars off of a $200 million turkey, and they would rather enable Ezra Miller's dysfunction in order to try to get box office, and again, showing us that there are real villains over at Warner Brothers, and again, showing me that we have a real serious ethics problem in Hollywood. Because when you see The Flash as a superhero movie, clearly your whole picture of superheroes is completely distorted. And people's view of superheroes are distorted, because a lot of people are still trying to do the deconstructed model from Watchmen. But Watchmen wasn't about heroes, no. Watchmen was all about what a hero should not be. It was a warning from Alan Moore, and I believe Alan Moore possibly was looking at this trailer in England or wherever he is and shaking his head, because it's clear that people don't get what Watchmen was all about. Because when I look at the Flash movie, it's basically the same twisted ethics as Ozymandias was participating in, thinking he was doing things for the greater good, but he was out here just so evil, and he had crossed the line. And that's the same thing I see as related to this Flash movie. I mean, this movie just absolutely disgusts me, not just because of Ezra Miller, but because of the ethics involved. And when I look at this Flash movie, again, I see another reason to run in the opposite direction, because if this is what a superhero movie is, then we really have fallen far as a society. Now, if you want to pick up some of my fantasy fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy. And if you want to pick up my first comic, E-Steam, No Good Deed, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more videos about comics, science fiction, and fantasy, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Give in to temptation and pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes